A Second Chance at Love. Previous episodes are available in playlist. A link is given in the video description. Episode 80. Exile. A deathly silence fell on the room. Lucian's gaze steadily avoided Sonia, not wanting to see her reaction. I have given her a second chance. Didn't she know how long it would take to get the results of a paternity test? Didn't she know I would figure out what Clinton was up to? Even Roxanne understood him and didn't dig her heels in, leaving the paternity test entirely to Sonia. On top of that, Elias sent a text. Your mother is being obstinate. But I still hope you will give her a chance so she may make it up to you. The text was sent yesterday, and he didn't mention the paternity test, but Lucian knew Sonia would never accept the results. In addition, Elias had interceded for Sonia. Clinton was shaking like a leaf and reached into his pocket, pulling out a report that had been folded up and handing it to Lucian with his head hung low. Mr. Farwell, it's all my fault for being too obsessed with benefits. Have mercy, Mr. Farwell. I don't want to go to prison. Clinton pleaded. He had already learned his lesson. Regret consumed him, and he realized he shouldn't have meddled in the affairs of the wealthy. He wanted to crawl into a hole and die at this moment, but he didn't expose Sonia for fear of offending more people the more he revealed. Lucian picked up the paternity test report and tossed it at Sonia without opening it, his gaze finally settling on her. Sonia was flabbergasted. She wasn't expecting Clinton to have his guard up to this extent. Being a villain seemed to necessitate a certain level of competence. She knew at that moment that she could never go back after Lucian exposed her and was afraid this would lead to a falling out with him. She was overwhelmed and couldn't meet his eyes. Mom, I don't get why you still refuse to accept Roxanne, Archie, and Benny. Fine, I'll grant your wish. You can travel around A with Dad starting today. Better yet, take in the scenic views, and don't return for 3 to 5 years. Lucian shot Roxanne an apologetic look, which she returned with a smile, not wanting to blame him. The color drained from Sonia's face at the verdict, and she looked like she had been struck by lightning. Son, I really have no idea what's going on with Clinton and why he would switch out the original report with a falsified one. It's not that I don't want to acknowledge Archie and Benny. I'd be overjoyed if they were my biological grandchildren. She tried to justify in a pleading tone, but Lucian's face was a mask of stone, and irritation flared in his eyes. Sonia's gaze shot to Roxanne in desperation, only to be met with a glacial expression on Roxanne's face. She couldn't muster sympathy for a grandmother who refused to accept her grandkids and would always attack them. Such traveling plans spanning 3 to 5 years were almost similar to exile. Any resemblance of domestic bliss would be irrelevant to her. Lucian's decision must have taken Elias' pleading for leniency on Sonia's behalf into account, or else he wouldn't have established a time limit. Besides, he had many properties in A, and it wouldn't be such a bad idea to leave them in the hands of Sonia. Gravity of your mistake. Roxanne didn't say a word at all. Lucian glanced at Clinton. Pack your things and piss off. There was an icy glint in his eyes. Clinton didn't dare argue. Narrowly avoiding prison had been mercy enough, so he promptly fled with his tail between his legs. Sonia skimmed the original report before raising her gaze to Roxanne. Roxanne, her tone changed. It's all my fault, and I apologize to your sons for being petty. Roxanne, Tell Lucian I'll promise to change and be better. I'm sorry, with Sonia's character, she would never meet anyone halfway unless it was a last resort, but the thought of being banished to A for 3 to 5 years struck fear in her. Roxanne wore an implacable expression, her eyes cold. I'm sorry, Mrs. Farwell. It's not up to me. She decided she had had enough and walked out of the foyer with long strides. Elias stayed in the garden to water the plants, worry drawing his brows together. Please forgive me, Lucian. I was at fault, but I was only trying to do what was best for the Farwell family. My head wasn't in the right place. I will make it up to the kids. I don't want to go to a foreign country in A. How can you do that to me? Sonia was still trying to redeem herself and apologize, but Lucian was determined to leave. He led Roxanne away, leaving a lone figure in the foyer, and wailing tore through the air a moment later. I did it for the Farwell family. Do you not respect me, Roxanne? You're not remarried yet, so I'm still your mother-in-law. What do you want from me, Roxanne? The heart-wrenching cries were thick with resentment. No matter what, Sonia was Elias' wife for many years, and his face contorted with sadness when he heard her weeping. He had reminded her many times, but she was stubborn and deserved such fate, yet alas, he walked into the foyer. Sonia sobbed while whining about how Roxanne didn't step in for her. Lucian would definitely reverse his decision if she said something. Elias saw how unrepentant his wife was and snarled, "You are solely to be blamed here. You have been blinded since the incident with Aubrey and caused so much pain and misery for our children. Never once did you care about how Lucian felt. You want to be in control and make your own decisions. What was so wrong with Roxanne that you couldn't accept her? She has never hurt you or Lucian. I'd say you should repent." Her tear-stained face jerked up, incredulity widening her eyes. "You're telling me off and pointing out my mistakes. I know I made a mistake, but it's not unsalvageable." She hiccuped. A sharp stab of disappointment pierced Elias. "It seems like you didn't grasp the gravity of your mistake. You're hurting the kids and denying their existence. Roxanne didn't say a word today, but can you imagine what? Buys clothes for Archie and Benny when Lucian took Roxanne and headed directly to the kindergarten to pick the kids up. The kids were delighted to see that their father had recovered from the cold. "Daddy, I have some pocket money. Let me treat you to dinner, okay? You just got sick, so you should eat something delicious." Estella blinked, almost as if she had made up her mind. "Where did you get your pocket money from? Didn't Grandpa help you save up all your monetary gifts from the holidays?" Lucian asked curiously. Roxanne, too, found it amusing. She felt that she had missed many moments of Estella growing up. Lifting the little girl into her arms, she asked, "Essie, did you save up a lot of monetary gifts?" Estella bobbed her head smugly. "Yes, a lot of monetary gifts. There are many zeros. Grandpa kept them for me. But the pocket money I have now is the money that other kids gave me after I helped them make some cards." "Is there such a thing?" Lucian averted his gaze toward Archie and Benny for verification. The two boys nodded. Archie replied, "The cards Essie made are really nice. That's why many other kids bought their own materials and asked her to help them make too. The remuneration for each card is $20. I was the one who decided on the amount. Se made quite many cards and earned a few hundred from it. These kids are beginning to earn money at such a young age. Lucian and Roxanne exchanged looks, their eyes filled with love and affection. Mommy, Daddy, Essie is still making the card she intends to give to the two of you. She hasn't finished yet, but I'm sure it'll be beautiful. You two have to look forward to it. Benny sure was a big blabbermouth who could not keep secrets to himself. She's going through? You have never liked her since the beginning. Serves you right. He spat and turned to leave. At that, Estella puffed her cheeks and protested, Benny, didn't you promise me that you won't ruin the surprise? Benny stuck out his tongue cheekily and made a face. Lucian's and Roxanne's curiosity grew at once. They were anticipating what the card would look like exactly. All right. Essie shall treat us today. Essie sure is the best. Following Lucian's words, the family headed to an authentic farm-to-table restaurant. That place served food that was affordable and also tasted delicious. The money Estella earned was enough for them to eat a sumptuous meal. It was already 9 at night when the family finished dinner and returned to the mansion. As they entered the courtyard contentedly, they saw Sonia's car, which was long parked inside. Before long, Sonia stepped out of the car with multiple bags in her hands. Lucian, Roxanne, you guys are finally back, she uttered. Lucian knitted his brows. It was evident he was not very welcoming of his mother. Roxanne, on the contrary, seemed to have noticed that Sonia's eyes were rather puffy. Did she cry? Despite so, she could not bring herself to empathize with Sonia. After glancing at the latter, she grabbed Estella's hand and prepared to head into the living room. At the sight of Sonia, Estella called out, "Grandma, what are you holding in your hand?" Contrastingly, Archie's and Benny's gazes were full of fear. Instinctively, they hid behind Lucian. Lucian's expression grew frostier when he witnessed the boys' reactions. The man carried the boys up, and unbothered about what Sonia wanted to do, he strode past her and headed straight into the living room. Bewilderment struck Sonia. Her lips twitched slightly, but she could not bring words out of her mouth. A myriad of emotions flooded her heart, which was made apparent by the conflicted expression on her face. She froze a long while before she forced a smile and turned to follow into the living room. The smile on her face was awfully bitter and gloomy. Lucian, Roxanne, these are some gifts I got for Archie and Benny. Winter is coming soon. Since the boys are growing up so quickly, it's time they have some new clothes. Of course, there are also some figurines. I don't know much about these things, so I'm unsure if they'll like them. Sonia's tone was soft and gentle. Make up for what I did. Seemingly not hearing those words, Lucian drank his tea and fixed his attention on his phone to deal with his work matters. On the other hand, upon learning that those gifts were for them, Archie and Benny looked at each other, then shifted their gazes toward Roxanne in unison. They could not wrap their heads around the current situation. Grandma was very cold toward us previously. She even says that we aren't Daddy's children. But now she's gifting us clothes and toys? Estella's curiosity was piqued as well. She strode over and asked, Grandma, you only bought gifts for Archie and Benny? You didn't get anything for me? Immense awkwardness filled Sonia as she only managed to garner a response from Estella. She smiled at the little girl and hastily explained, "I'll get something for you another day, is that all right? I went to a boys' clothing store today." Nodding, Estella popped another question. "Grandma, so are you willing to acknowledge Archie and Benny now? Did you realize that they are looking more and more like Daddy?" In reality, a child's words were the most innocent but, at the same time, the most truthful. Sonia had always been reluctant to accept the truth. Now that Estella had reminded her, she could not help but look closely at Archie and Benny. Indeed, they're becoming more like Lucian, especially their eyes. They're almost like a replica of the younger Lucian. Sonia curled her lips into a smile and beckoned to the two boys. "Archie, Benny, come over and try on these clothes. See if they fit well." Hearing that, the two boys shook their heads in unison. "There's no need. Mommy will buy them for us. Thank you." There was no greeting in that straightforward rejection. It was drastically different from her usual image. There was even a tinge of misery in her voice. Tears began to cloud Sonia's eyes. Nonetheless, she maintained her smile. "Yeah, your mommy takes good care of you too. I'm the one who isn't qualified to be your grandmother. I'm at fault." Roxanne could not help but feel her heart soften when she heard what Sonia said. She turned to the two boys and nodded in approval. "Go on. Go and try the new clothes Grandma bought for you too. Remember to thank Grandma." The two boys were initially a little stumped but eventually agreed to it cheerily. Slightly taken aback by the situation as well, Lucian threw a glance at Roxanne. Roxanne, however, upon giving the boys the green light, carried Estella in her arms and headed upstairs to help the little girl wash up. Sonia froze in shock for a good few seconds. A complicated look flashed across her eyes as she stared at Roxanne's retreating back. In truth, Roxanne's stand was simple. It was undeniable the kids were the Farwell family's grandchildren, and they would forever share a familial bond with Sonia. No matter what, she did not see a need to deliberately suppress that connection. Hence, as long as Sonia was willing to get close to the kids, it did not matter to Roxanne, even if the former were to deny her as her daughter-in-law. Snapping back to her senses, Sonia quickly took the clothes out of the bags and helped Archie and Benny put them on. As she did that, she kept asking the boys if they liked the clothing she bought for them. "Yes. We like it. Thank you, Grandma." "Of course we do. Grandma, these clothes probably cost a lot, don't they?" "Thank you, Grandma." When Sonia heard how the boys addressed her, her body trembled slightly. Recalling everything she had done, she felt a sense of regret intensify within her. Faced with the boys' gazes, pure and innocent-looking gazes, Sonia was overwhelmed by guilt and pain. At once, her eyes turned red with tears. Yet, Lucian did not comment anything. Instead, he merely turned to Archie and Benny and uttered, "I'm heading to the study. Remember to shower and head to bed on time later." The two boys bobbed their heads in agreement before diverting their attention back to the toys Sonia bought for them. "Do you have the patience, Lucian, Roxanne? I'll be heading back first. I'll come back to accompany the kids another day." As Lucian was in the study and Roxanne was in the bathroom, Sonia went to the second floor and called out to them. There was, however, no reply even after a few seconds. A bitter smile spread across Sonia's face. Yeah, I deserved it. Surprisingly, Roxanne, who had just finished helping Estella wash her hair, rushed to the courtyard while drying her hands. Mrs. Farwell, it's late, drive slower. You can take Archie and Benny out to play when you come over next time. Roxanne's eyes reflected her sincerity, and it was clear those were not words she said out of formalities. Sonia was momentarily stunned before she nodded and replied with a smile, "Sure. I'll come over again." After sending Sonia off, Roxanne returned to the second floor and took out the bath towels and pajamas for Archie and Benny. Just then, Lucian walked out from the study and reached out to wipe the sweat away from Roxanne's forehead. "Darling, you've worked hard. I only help Essie get cleaned up. That's nothing much. Essie won't let me help her when she grows a little older. I don't have many chances left." "Oh my gosh! Benny, quickly take a look. It's Evangelion 01's toy figurine. Where did you get this, Grandma? I tried looking for it for a long time but couldn't find it." "Archie, there's this too. Grandma also got us Gundam. It's a collectible. It's very tough to lay one's hand on." "Thank you so much, Grandma." Here were many boxes of toy figurines. Every time the two boys picked up a box, they would exclaim in excitement. Listening to the boys' ecstatic cheers, Sonia felt a sense of relief wash over her. "I made too many mistakes, and because of that, I'll need time to make up for what I did." "No. I'm talking about Mom. Thank you for being able to treat her so politely." Lucian's deep gaze resembled the mesmerizing night sky, drawing Roxanne's attention toward him. "Frankly speaking, I still can't forgive her. It's just that I ought to set a good example for the kids since she treats them well. But there might still be opportunities. Perhaps she'll be an amazing grandmother in the future." Roxanne had finally said her innermost thoughts aloud. Lucian wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her into his embrace to hug her tightly. "Daddy, Mommy, you two are secretly hugging again. I want one too. I want a hug too." Estella's baby voice suddenly rang out, and she squeezed to fit herself between the two adults. Meanwhile, Sonia had just arrived back at the Farwell residence. Coincidentally, Elias had also just returned after playing chess with his friends. Upon learning from the butler that Sonia went to visit the kids, he felt somewhat relieved. To him, he believed that Sonia was not a mean person by nature. Instead, she was merely bad-tempered, narrow-minded, and stubborn. He deemed that he had to be blamed for his wife's shortcomings. It was because he never openly confronted Sonia's flaws that gave rise to her not mending her ways and eventually spiraling out of control. "Did you see the kids? Have you apologized to them?" Lifting his gaze, Elias noticed that Sonia seemed to have calmed down. Sonia nodded in response. "I saw them. Archie and Benny love the toys I bought for them, and that's all thanks to Kaden." Sonia briefly shared with Elias about the situation earlier. Then, she fell silent and remained seated, waiting for Elias to add fuel to the fire or mock her. Surprisingly, instead of doing that, Elias looked at her with a gentle gaze and a faint smile. "I'll go and look for Lucian tomorrow and ask him not to chase you to Ape. But at the same time, you have to correct your mistakes from now on. You have done too many hurtful things to Roxanne. I'm afraid it won't be easy for her to forgive you. Do you have the patience?" Sonia remained in a daze and did not respond for a long while. Moments later, she abruptly broke the silence. "I realized I have a bad temper all these years, but you've always been tolerant. Thank you so much, Elias." Her gaze was filled with warmth and tenderness as she spoke. Without saying a word, Elias reached out his hand and grabbed hers tightly. Right then, a car arrived at the courtyard outside. Shortly after the engine was turned off, they heard Electra's voice. "Mr. Farwell, Mrs. Farwell, I'm here. My parents just returned from their hometown. They brought back some specialties and said they wanted to give them to you too." Electra opened the car trunk, picked up many bags, and headed into the house. A doubtful look crossed Elias' face as he stood up and walked over to welcome her in. "It looks like something's up, huh? Otherwise, she wouldn't have to make up an excuse to come over here this late at night." Worried that Electra would notice her puffy eyes, Sonia hastily responded with a smile, "It's not safe to drive at this hour. You could have come over tomorrow." "What a coincidence. I was planning to use a facial mask." With that said, she turned around and went into her room. When she came out again, the facial mask was already on her face to conceal everything. Did not know how to cherish Electra was a touch puzzled. Mrs. Farwell has always been very particular about manners and etiquette. Isn't it impolite to put on a facial mask while receiving guests? On second thought, she supposed that Sonia not acting prim and proper in front of her was the latter's way of getting close to her. Recalling that Elias was still beside her, Electra immediately laughed and stated, "Mr. Farwell, there are some tasty fruits in the stuff I brought here. Let me go wash them for you." Elias immediately waved a dismissive hand. He told Electra there was no need and that he would do it instead. As he turned around, he came to a sudden realization. So, this young lady is purposely using this excuse to make me leave. What does she want to tell Sonia? Hopefully, Sonia won't make the wrong judgment and make the same mistake as Aubrey's case. After watching Elias walk into the kitchen, Electra turned to look at Sonia while wearing a smile on her face. Electra's motive was simple for this visit: to get Sonia to help create an opportunity for Lucian to spend time with her. Because of that, she had found a perfect excuse. "Mrs. Farwell, I learned of a piece of news today. Mr. Valentine, the principal of the middle school Lucian and I went to, has fallen severely ill. It's probably cancer or something. He's a nice man, but a pity he's poor and doesn't have much savings, so he's delaying his treatment right now. Could you help me explain the situation to Lucian? I was thinking of asking him to go and visit Mr. Valentine with me and donate some money to him for his treatment," Electra explained slowly. She believed Sonia would be smart enough to read between the lines and understand what she was trying to say. In other words, she wanted to spend time and do something together with Lucian. That way, it would pull them closer and build a stronger relationship. For that reason, she was not too worried that Sonia would refuse. "Is that so? You should help him out, of course. Then again, Electra, I'm occupied with health examinations lately. Lucian is probably busy with work matters too. Regarding this matter, you can look for him and ask him directly. I believe he'll be able to make time for it. Sonia's answer left Elektra wholly floored. It was a tactful refusal. Not only did Sonia not express her agreement with Elektra's idea, but the former also had no intention of helping her to convey those words. A frown marred Elektra's countenance, but she concealed it almost instantaneously. Oh! That's true. Mrs. Farwell, what's wrong with your health? She smoothly changed the subject to Sonia's health. Deep down, she was still mulling over Sonia's response. Her attitude seems to have changed. She's no longer as eager as she was the other time. It's no big deal, just routine examination. There's no need to worry about me. Although Sonia answered with a smile, the facial mask had covered her face, and as a result, Elektra could not see her expression. The two continued with a short casual chat before Elektra left the Farwell residence, her mind flooded by the thought that she would have to ask Lucian out by herself. After her departure, Elias returned with a plate of fruits in his hand. You finally learned your lesson, he said with a nod. Sonia did not respond. On the inside, she was thinking about those words Elias had said to her before. If I hadn't irrationally supported Aubrey back then, would she not have made so many mistakes one after another? Would she come to her senses in time? Perhaps the Pearson family wouldn't be reduced to its current state if that were so. Your daughter is unworthy. On the second day, after much thought, Elektra finally called Lucian and informed him of the situation. However, she did not mention that she wanted to go alone with him. Lucian immediately agreed to her request. Okay, we can find a time to visit the principal together. Let me check with Roxanne to see if she's available. She can do a check-up for the principal. As you know, her medical skills are great. Elektra could only stammer her thanks at his response. That would be great. Ms. Jarvis is so skilled in medicine, maybe she can treat the principal. Let me know once the date is confirmed. I'm available anytime. All right. Once Lucian hung up the phone, Elektra's face immediately wilted. She could not bear to see Lucian and Roxanne show off their affection in front of her. A wave of annoyance flowed through her as she muttered to herself, I'm always one step behind. Why don't you give up, Elektra Lane? An abrupt thought that she had committed too many sins rose with Sonia. She stared at Elias and questioned, Elias, do I really have a lot of mental disabilities? I'm thinking of changing my belief. What do you think? It sounds great that you're turning over a new leaf. It's pretty good to be religious. As long as you're sincere, it's never too late. Elias picked up a slice of fruit and put it into Sonia's mouth. Even though the facial mask was still on her face, Sonia could no longer suppress her emotions, and tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. From her perspective, Elias had treated her too nicely and was overboard at showering her with adoration. That eventually caused her character to become increasingly extreme. Sadly, she did not know how to cherish the love and adoration Elias gave her. Even Mrs. Farwell's attitude has changed. You won't have a chance of winning. Isn't it better to just wish them well? Why am I always so full of myself? If I had been bolder back in school, would I be with Lucian now? After pondering for a long time, Elektra finally calmed down and went downstairs. Her parents, Richard Lane and Matilda Saviques, asked her how she was feeling after noticing her listless appearance. Electra told them that she had successfully delivered the specialty products to the Farwell family yesterday. She then picked up her phone and played with it without saying another word. Matilda smiled and asked, "Today, your uncle introduced us to a young man who returned from abroad. Do you have time to meet him?" Her voice was gentle as she was afraid of her daughter's strong reaction. Electra's face froze instantly, her eyes filled with anger. "Mom, can't you take a break? 3 dates a week is too frequent. To be honest, those boys are all outstanding, but I don't like them. I'm not worthy of them, okay?" Feeling flustered, Matilda turned and looked at her husband. Richard frowned and said sternly, "How can you talk to your mother like that? We've already told you not to think about Lucian anymore. He came to explain the marriage certificate incident to us. You agreed to help him willingly. It's impossible for you two to be together. Ms. Jarvis has already given birth to 3 children for him. What else do you need to give up on him?" His words were adding fuel to the fire. Electra felt a jolt of anger thrumming through her veins. She got up, gave her father a cold glance, and walked out of the hall without looking back. "This brat!" Matilda quickly tried to placate her infuriated husband. Electra felt like she could barely breathe. No one in the world understood her. The guys she met on blind dates were no match for Lucian. When she was rational, she knew it was impossible to be with Lucian. However, she could not restrain her impulse. Electra drove her sports car and called her friends to meet at a bar. Meanwhile, Roxanne walked out of the laboratory and into her office, her face filled with joy. Soon, Peregrine arrived as well. He was similarly beaming with excitement. "We did it, Ms. Jarvis! You are amazing! After finding this substance, the effectiveness of our medicine has increased several times. Now we can use a special declaration channel to get the new drug on the market as soon as possible," he said elatedly. Roxanne nodded. "Thank you for leading so many researchers to work day and night. You are the pillar of our research institute." Feeling embarrassed, the old man replied, "I don't deserve the credit. It's all thanks to your abilities, Ms. Jarvis." "Haha, but no matter what, we are doing good for all the patients. Great work. Yes, there are other projects worth completing. Let's work hard together," she replied enthusiastically. The Research Institute had indeed soared to greater heights ever since Peregrine joined. Roxanne believed that in the future, she would be able to create more drugs and live up to her mentor's expectations. Gifting a mansion, Roxanne was feeling particularly relaxed that day. She had already made plans with her best friend to celebrate that night. Subsequently, she called Lucian to ask him to bring Jonathan along for the celebration. She then went to the kindergarten to pick up her 3 children and took them to a restaurant, where they began their celebratory dinner in high spirits. Madeline, dressed in her best attire, looked particularly gorgeous that night with her exquisite makeup. "Aunt Madeline, you look stunning." Archie and Benny flattered and heaped praise. Estella added, "Aunt Madeline, you are even more beautiful than Mommy." Madeline was surprised at Estella's kind words. When she turned to look at Lucian and Roxanne, both did not seem to mind. "So, these three children who were separated in such a strange way have finally reunited? To be honest, although I have known this fact for a long time, I still haven't quite digested it, said Madeline, feeling emotional seeing Roxanne and Lucian together. What do you mean when you say I'm more beautiful than your mommy? Your mom is still the most beautiful, isn't she? You are quite the talker, little girl. Madeline picked up Estella and fed her a small piece of steak. The little girl was too preoccupied with eating to talk. Everyone laughed at her cute look as she tried to talk and eat at the same time. Just then, Roxanne noticed her best friend glanced at Jonathan from time to time. She suddenly had a thought. Why didn't I realize that my best friend was dressed up so beautifully today for a reason? When did this start? Lucian was a really gentle dad. He didn't eat much throughout the meal and only drank a lot of champagne. Most of the time, he was busy feeding the children. Congratulations to Ms. Jarvis for her consecutive successful new drug developments. Each drug is more popular than the other, and the market value of your research institute is getting higher and higher, Jonathan said, lifting his glass to give Roxanne a toast. She immediately lifted her glass but found a cold pair of eyes staring at her. Hence, she smiled awkwardly and quickly changed it to a glass of grape juice, which had a color similar to that of red wine. After drinking, Lucian finally relaxed and praised her. Because of the cooperation between Farwell Group and your research institute, our company's stock has also risen a lot. It's all thanks to you. The man also lifted his glass for a toast. Roxanne did not refuse and followed suit. Come to think of it, I can understand Jack's behaviors back then. The potential that Ms. Jarvis possesses is simply immeasurable. Jonathan followed Lucian's lead and continued to flatter her. That's right, my best friend is amazing. Madeline, who rarely sang praises, echoed Jonathan's words. When Jonathan smiled at her, she immediately appeared flustered and looked away. Lucian noticed Madeline's odd behavior and gave Roxanne a questioning look. In response, the woman raised her eyebrows and smiled. Lucian immediately understood and smiled tacitly. It seems that this pair should be easy to match. After 3 rounds of drinking and a 5-course meal, Roxanne suddenly announced her resolution. Lucian was baffled by her odd request as they were not in the company or the research institute. To express my gratitude to my good friend Madeline for her unconditional care for the children and me all these years, I have decided to gift her a mansion. How about that? Roxanne declared. As soon as she finished speaking, Lucian and Jonathan smiled and applauded. The children also cheered and jumped excitedly. Aunt Madeline, say yes. Mommy wants to give you a mansion, they urged. Madeline was stunned for a long time, looking at Roxanne incredulously. Send her back, okay, I shall accept it. What can I say? I have a wealthy best friend. After Madeline regained her senses, she did not hesitate to accept the offer. Roxanne was satisfied with the outcome. This was what best friends should be like, they understood each other's thoughts. Being coy and hesitant only made both parties feel distant. Of course, Roxanne had another plan. She smirked and teased, hold on, you need to fulfill my condition to earn the mansion. Madeline rolled her eyes. I knew it. There must be conditions tied to the gift. What do you want me to do? Both men were curious about the terms that might be offered in return for a villa. It's not that difficult. You shall be the next hospital director. How about that? You can handle the position, right? Roxanne looked at her best friend and asked with a grin. Once again, Madeline was left speechless. Is this a promotion? An escalated promotion? The woman had been working in the hospital under Roxanne's research institute, with a high salary and good benefits. Although the workload wasn't light, she had always been happy with her job. But she never thought that one day Roxanne would entrust her with such an important responsibility. The director position had been vacant for a long time. At this moment, she felt a little overwhelmed. This meant not only a promotion but also an increase in responsibilities. Are you afraid to take on the role? Seeing her hesitation, Roxanne deliberately provoked Madeline. When the three children heard that Madeline was offered the role, they immediately encouraged her to accept it. Aunt Madeline, please agree. Estella asked innocently, is a director more powerful than the head of a kindergarten? Lucian and Jonathan exchanged glances. They never thought that Roxanne would entrust such an important position to Madeline. After all, this hospital was the flagship hospital of the Research Institute and had many social responsibilities. Madeline considered the offer for a long time. When she looked up and saw Roxanne's expectant eyes, she gritted her teeth and showed fierce determination. Okay, I'll do it. I won't say anything irresponsible. Since I have agreed, I will manage the hospital to the best of my ability and not let you down. Madeline said resolutely. Okay, then it's settled. I also plan to get you a car. As for what kind of assistant you want, you can choose for yourself. Roxanne would not be stingy and gave her friend the treatment she deserved. This meal, which was supposed to be a celebration banquet, turned into a recognition ceremony for Madeline. Of course, she ultimately elevated this hospital to the pinnacle of the region's private hospitals. After a while, the children started to feel tired, and the celebration banquet ended. Madeline was exhilarated and downed herself in alcohol. Her face was flushed, and she walked unsteadily with Roxanne supporting her. Lucian immediately looked at Jonathan and instructed, "Escort Ms. Xander home. You shouldn't drive, though. Let the driver send you guys back." Roxanne brought Madeline to Jonathan once he acknowledged the request. "Hold on to her. I still have to carry Essie. Look at her, she's fighting to keep her eyes open." After passing Madeline over to Jonathan, Roxanne immediately picked up Estella. When the little girl smelled her mom's scent, she put her head on her shoulder and fell asleep within a few seconds. Jonathan supported Madeline carefully, holding her arms with both hands. "Ms. Xander, are you okay? I'll take you home." The woman still retained some level of consciousness. When she looked at Roxanne and noticed her winking, she knew something was up. Madeline seemed to understand her friend's intention, her heart began to pound wildly. Lucian held Archie and Benny with both hands and quickly retreated after giving Roxanne a signal. Their transport had already arrived, so they quickly loaded the kids into the car and drove away. By the time Jonathan supported Madeline to the front door, their friends were nowhere to be seen. Vomit bag after the driver arrived, Jonathan carefully helped Madeline into the car. He immediately went to the trunk and took out a vomit bag, preparing for the worst. Although the woman felt dizzy, she was still conscious. She could not help but admire the man's meticulousness. Once Jonathan got into the car, he handed the bag to Madeline and instructed the driver, "Drive slower and don't swerve too much." Next, he shifted his position to keep an appropriate distance from Madeline. He sat upright and looked out the window as if he had nothing to do with her. Madeline finally understood why such a handsome and eligible man was still single. She began to lose her sobriety as she had consumed too much alcohol in her moment of joy. A few seconds later, she closed her eyes and appeared to have fallen asleep. Jonathan took a quick glance and noticed that her head was slipping and tilting, although her eyes remained closed. "Ms. Xander, are you asleep?" he asked. By then, Madeline was in a half-conscious state. She felt uncomfortable because her head had nowhere to rest. Hence, she really wished that the man would let her lean on his shoulder, but he remained indifferent. As she drifted to sleep again, her body slid toward Jonathan, her head accidentally fell on his shoulder. She was somewhat aware and felt that she was still in an uncomfortable position. Hence, her head involuntarily moved toward Jonathan. Unexpectedly, the man used his other hand to support her head. Madeline suddenly woke up because the man's hand was forcefully lifting her head away from his shoulder. "Ms. Xander, wake up, don't fall asleep. It's easy to cause vomiting like this." Jonathan's voice was low and gentle. Feeling utterly speechless, Madeline shifted away from him and sat upright. "This man is difficult to deal with." She sighed inwardly and gradually fell asleep again. After the car pulled up at the accommodation, Jonathan immediately got out to help her out of the car. However, this time, Madeline had become quite sober and got out of the car by herself. "Thank you, Mr. Queen, for the vomit bag." With a flushed face, she handed the bag to the man with a hint of resentment. She then quickly stomped into the residential area. Jonathan rubbed his nose in confusion when he saw the look of annoyance on her face. Was the air conditioning too cold just now? As Jonathan watched Madeline walking away, he called Lucian to inform him that he had successfully escorted the woman home. Sudden price hike during the night, Roxanne chatted plenty with Madeline until the latter fell asleep. After that, Roxanne felt a slight pain coming from her abdomen. It was about time for her period. It greatly discomforted her every time. As a result, she often had to bear the pain while working. She thought Lucian had fallen asleep, but to her surprise, he left the kitchen with a cup of sweet ginger ale and served it to her. "Drink this first. When you're done, I'll give you a foot massage. What do you think?" Roxanne was slightly stunned. "While I'm surprised to see him being so gentle since he usually has a stern and cold demeanor as the CEO of Farwell Group, I'm nonetheless touched by his act." After she grabbed the cup, he told her to wait a bit before blowing at the liquid inside until the temperature cooled down. Then he left to fetch a basin of water. As she drank the sweet ginger ale, she felt the pain in her abdomen dissipating. "Why is this sweeter than honey?" "Okay, good job. Is there any further development?" Lucian asked casually. "What development?" "No, I just followed your instructions and sent Ms. Xander home," Jonathan replied seriously. Lucian was stunned for 2 seconds before nodding. "Okay, that's it then." As soon as he hung up the phone, Roxanne's phone rang. It was Madeline calling. Roxanne, can you believe it? As soon as I got in the car, he gave me a vomit bag. Oh my goodness! Not a hangover pill, not water, but a vomit bag. Roxanne, am I doomed? Do I deserve this? Madeline ranted angrily. Roxanne was amused. She never thought that Jonathan could be so clueless. In the past, she thought Jonathan was too busy developing and strengthening the Queen family to be bothered with love affairs. It seemed that it was not the case. I think I understand now why Madeline was complaining so much earlier and said Jonathan must have had some sort of psychological barrier after comparing him with Lucian. She couldn't help but smile as she thought about how lucky she was. Upon returning with a basin of water, Lucian asked her to sit properly, tested the water temperature, and massaged her feet. Once you're done, I'll help do the same, too. Roxanne felt pleasantly surprised to receive that treatment, which spurred her to show him just what a kind wife she was. I don't need it since I don't have periods. Besides, your legs turn stiff after standing around in the research institute every day. Massaging your foot like this can relieve fatigue and prevent your veins from swelling, right? In response, she nodded. He's correct. I still can't believe this is happening because he's acting so lovely right now. The next morning, after Roxanne sent her children to kindergarten, she prepared to head toward the research institute. It was then Linda called her. When I checked the institute's account earlier, I noticed something's wrong with the price of our raw materials, Dr. Jarvis. Our costs suddenly skyrocketed. I continued investigating the matter and discovered the Damaris family's medicinal herbs suppliers had hiked the price for those materials. The purchasing department didn't notify me of the matter in time. Furrowing her eyebrows, Roxanne asked, "How much did the price increase?" I thought the Queen family bought the Damaris family's medicinal herbs suppliers. There's no way Jonathan would suddenly increase the price. It was increased by at least 50%. Some even went up to 200% of their original cost. The price for our latest medicine will be too low to cover our cost in this case. We'll be losing money. Stifled rage and anxiety could be heard in Linda's voice. I see. In that case, I want you to sort out the materials that had their price increased and create a price comparison. Send the results to my phone. I'll ask about what's happening instead of returning to the research institute first. Upon ending the phone call, Roxanne pondered for a few moments. Does Lucian know about this? I don't think it's a good idea to ask him about it in his company. I guess I'll call him first and ask him to meet up with me somewhere else. The Crawford family. Not long after, Jonathan hurriedly arrived at the cafe. Roxanne didn't have time to reprimand him about his actions last night and went straight to the point. Did you raise the price? Immediately, he shook his head. Crap! I relegated these businesses to Frida, so this sudden price hike definitely has something to do with her. Lucian glanced at him coldly, wordlessly telling him to figure out what was going on as soon as possible. In response, Jonathan nodded and promised, "I'll handle the issue right away, Ms. Jarvis. You don't need to pay for the material fee this time. I'll solve this issue." Then he returned to the Queen residence, enraged. When he entered the building, he saw Frida putting on makeup and preparing to leave. Frigidly, Jonathan questioned, "Did you raise the price of the medicinal herbs?" "Lucian handed us these businesses because he wants us to earn a stable profit and prevent others from coveting them." "Why did you raise the price? I demand a reasonable explanation." Frida's expression remained relatively unchanged as she gave her brother a side glance. "Business is business, Jonathan. Besides, we're just the middleman. There's nothing I can do if the farmers producing the medicinal herbs want to increase their prices. I'm merely passing on the cost. Is that so wrong?" Hence, she briefly told Lucian about the situation over the phone and asked him to meet her at a cafe near Farwell Group. When he arrived, she had also received the files Linda had sent her, so she immediately showed them to him. Right after he briefly read through the documents, he frowned. "Something's not right. I asked the Queen family to purchase those companies to better control the supply and price. They're no different from Jack if they hike up the price so suddenly. Don't worry. I'll ask Jonathan about it. Or do you think we should provide those medicinal herbs to Roxanne at a loss?" That was an excuse she came up with beforehand. In fact, she wasn't afraid of her brother looking into the matter to confirm the validity of her claim. Her objective in doing what she did was to let the people in charge of those companies earn more money so they would become more loyal to her. As for the medicinal herb suppliers who were already working with the Queen family, they would eventually be attracted to her. When that time came, Jonathan's resources would only exist in name. "Are you sure you aren't doing this for your personal gain?" Jonathan refused to believe her. Over the years, the prices of medicinal herbs he managed had consistently increased rather gently. A massive price hike like that had never occurred before. "You can always investigate the matter if you like. If Roxanne doesn't like the price, we'll just cancel our collaboration with her. Even if I sell these herbs to someone else, I'll still charge them the same price." Upon glaring at him, Frida put away her makeup box, grabbed her bag, and prepared to leave. "You dare go overboard. I will look into the matter," barked Jonathan. Without delay, he picked up his phone and started contacting the medicinal herbs suppliers. To his shock, he discovered all of them did indeed raise their prices. Additionally, plenty of suppliers under him were complaining about the issue and subtly wondering about the possibility of a price increase. Eventually, Jonathan learned the culprit behind the situation was, of course, Frida. She was the one who raised the purchase price and swayed many medicinal herbs suppliers from the northern and southern regions to her side. What is she trying to do? Is she doing the bidding of that man again? Jonathan didn't have the nerve to keep quiet about the situation, so he quickly informed Lucian of his findings through a call. He also mentioned the man his sister interacted with. "I'm sorry, Lucian. I thought I could control my sister, and I've been watching that man's actions closely. However, I was wrong," he apologized. However, Lucian seemed exceptionally composed. "I already know about that man." Full frontal assault inside Frida's office, a finance officer reported, "Due to the price hike, our expenses this month have vastly increased. However, our clients have been settling their payments. Currently, our biggest client is Dr. Jarvis Research Institute and Factory. Once they pay us what they owe, our profit will increase even further." Once he ended his sentence, Frida swiftly signed the necessary documents and gestured for him to leave. Not long after, Sean entered the office with a bouquet of red roses, which he promptly presented to her. Frida was on cloud nine when she saw that. Hastily, she stood and pounced toward him. "You shouldn't do that in your office, considering you only have a frosted glass partition here. People outside can figure out the gist of what we're doing inside." Grinning, he put the roses down and promptly hugged her waist. "I don't care. In fact, I'm willing to announce to everyone that you're my man." At that moment, she was wholly immersed in the bliss of her romance. "I'm enamored with this bad boy. He was the one who taught me to raise the purchase price and slowly draw the owners of those medicinal herbs companies toward me. At the same time, I'm also creating an obstacle for Roxanne. Now that the cost of the raw materials has been raised, her wish to sell her medicine at a low price will never be realized. He's Sean Crawford, from the Crawford family of the North. In the past, they had a clash with my grandpa and lost terribly. Ever since then, they had been waiting for an opportunity to make their move. No need to worry. I'll take care of this matter." "Thank you, Lucian. I really shouldn't have let my sister handle so many medicinal herbs supplies." Jonathan was regretful, but it was too late. "I've accomplished something that Jack couldn't. It's all according to Sean's plan. Even Lucian can't control the price of the medicine now. How can he when everyone on the supply chain is making more money? You've been doing well lately. I got some free time today, so after you get off work, I'll bring you to a fancy restaurant for dinner together." Sean was delighted with how obsessed she was with him. He always had a magical charm to make the women who fell for him do everything he wanted, even to their own detriment. "Okay. Wait for me. I'll be done soon." Gleefully, she kissed him. After he left her office, he exited the building and entered a Bentley. With a sneer, he picked up his phone and sent a name list to his assistant before calling the latter. "I want you to contact every client on the list. Tell them they'll earn 20% more profit than from Farwell Group. I don't believe they don't like money." However, his assistant hesitated. "All of them, Mr. Crawford? Don't you think that's too ambitious? What if someone reports it to Lucian?" Sean assured confidently, "I doubt it. This is just a normal quotation process. I bet many other companies have done the same with them. Even if they refuse, they won't expose it lest they risk driving themselves into a corner." In the end, his assistant launched his planned full frontal assault. Adrian, Arculia, and Ape were Farwell Group's most significant export locations, which Sean planned to deal with one by one. His backers consisted of not only eager families from the north but also many losers in the south, who were ruthlessly suppressed by Farwell Group. All of them very much wished Farwell Group would collapse as soon as possible. "It's finally almost time to settle our family's grudges, Lucian. This time, I'll defeat you." The look in Sean's eyes turned sharp. "No need." Smugly, Frida asked her assistant to call Roxanne's Research Institute and Company to settle their payments. "I'm going to give her a headache and make her yield to me." Soon after, her assistant entered her office with a smile. "We've received the payment, Ms. Queen." Her assistant was delightfully waiting for Frida to praise or reward her with a bonus. However, Frida's expression darkened frightfully. They did? Tens of millions? All of it. The assistant didn't understand why her employer seemed upset that they had received the payment. Her smile faded as she nodded. Yes, all of it. It was Frida's turn to be confused. I thought Roxanne would refuse to settle the payment. Her materials now cost more than 10 million, after all. No company would ignore such a price difference. Panically, she gestured for her assistant to leave and immediately called Sean. After briefing him about the situation, she asked, Lucian and Roxanne aren't planning anything, are they? Sean remained silent for a while. I didn't expect this to happen. Usually, companies would express strong resistance when their suppliers suddenly raise the price. Then, they'll renegotiate their deal. So, what's going on? Despite his thoughts, he reassured, no need to panic. You've received the money, and these companies are now firmly in your grasp. There's nothing for you to be afraid of. Okay. I'll meet you at the mansion tonight. Frida missed him. Okay. Upon hanging up the call, Sean kept thinking about his enemy's plans. Not long after, he suddenly realized something. Looking like a deflated balloon, he muttered, it seems like I've lost this round. During the afternoon, Jonathan carried out the plan Roxanne and Lucian had cooked up. Since Frida maliciously hiked the price, they opted to launch a price war. Their plan was simple and brutal. They would offer higher prices than Frida did to everyone. With that, the Queen family's original suppliers were elated. They stopped having crooked thoughts and started supplying a colossal number of medicinal herbs and masse. Within minutes, all of Frida's efforts to gain the trust of those company owners were wiped away. During that evening, 10 of the 14 medicinal herbs company the Damaris family left behind requested to work with Jonathan. By dinner time, another 3 approached him. He accepted and signed a contract with all of them to adjust the price according to each quarter's market. After all, the price would only continue to rise for the latest quarter. When those bosses saw Jonathan's proposed price, they immediately signed the contract without reading it. After Lucian had dinner with his family, Jonathan called him to report the situation. All 14 companies under my sister's control have signed a contract with me. Based on my estimates, we'll lose around 200 to 300 million this quarter. However, they're bound to expand production next quarter. Thus, the prices will drop back down. As for the medicinal herb farmers, they won't make too less money. It's my fault for letting this happen, which is why the Queen family will bear the losses. Lucian smiled when he heard that. Because his phone was in loudspeaker mode, Roxanne heard what Jonathan said, too. Hence, she replied, the Queen family doesn't need to make up for the losses. I can license one of my research institute's patents to pharmaceutical companies in A pay for around $1 billion. Once that deal goes through, I can allocate 200 million from that earnings to cover the losses. Looking forward once Roxanne ended her sentence, she hung up, denying Jonathan a chance to refuse. Worried that Lucian would be dissatisfied, she explained, I'm content with the scheme you've devised for me. Lucian. However, if the Queen family bears the losses, it'll be the same as you do it. This whole scheme will be meaningless in that case. However, Lucian chuckled. Your methods are very befitting of a businessman's now. Really? That's great. As long as Jonathan can control the prices, he'll help me save a lot of money. I'd say 200 million is a fitting price to pay to settle this matter. Then Roxanne turned around to boil water and prepare Lucian's favorite coffee. The fragrance of coffee filled the air. As she enjoyed the coffee, he carefully observed her expression and said, "Accompany me to the middle school tomorrow, Roxanne. I promised Electra to visit our old principal since he's sick." She grinned. "Since this is a promise between you and Ms. Lane, I don't think it's a good idea for me to join you too." "It's fine. I won't get jealous. I know you two are only former classmates." The current Roxanne was a lot franker and better at expressing her thoughts. "I don't need to be jealous since he has done so much to prove his love for me. Besides, I'm sure he mentioned he would bring me along when he talked to Electra. In that case, I don't have anything to be upset about. That's not exactly why I'm asking you to join me. Did you forget you're the legendary Dr. Jarvis? I want you to come along because you may be able to treat his condition. See? In that case, I'll gladly join you. When the time comes, pick me up at the Research Institute. I need to be there very early in the morning tomorrow." Electra was groggily woken up by her alarm clock at 9 in the morning. As she was dead drunk last night, she couldn't recall why she was woken up by the alarm clock. Hence, she turned it off and went back to sleep, not wanting to deal with anything else. Then she suddenly recalled her promise with Lucian to meet with their old principal. She opened her eyes, ignored her headache, and rapidly dressed up. There was only an hour left until her time of meeting at 10. Swiftly, she bathed, changed into a lovely attire, put on makeup to conceal her despondent appearance, and washed her mouth multiple times to remove the smell of alcohol. As Electra stood before the gates of her middle school, she reminisced about her time there. "It's been more than a decade, but I still remember how Lucian and I always do things together. I'd sit on his bicycle as he rode around the school while the students talked about us. Eventually, our homeroom teacher would tell us not to fall in love when we were still young. It would have been nice if we did." In a daze, a smile surfaced on her countenance before vanishing a few seconds later. It was because she saw Lucian and Roxanne stepping out of a Rolls-Royce. So, he still brought her along. "I feel somewhat uncomfortable, but then again, I know it's going to happen." Electra tried to convince herself to accept reality. Moments later, Lucian approached her with Roxanne. "Did you wait for long, Electra? His voice always mesmerizes me." Nodding, Electra stared at Roxanne. "Our old principal, Mr. Valentine, is really ill, Ms. Jarvis. He's in a lot of pain. I hope you'll be able to treat him." In response, Roxanne nodded. "I can see she's still captivated by Lucian, but I'm okay with it. He's an excellent man, after all, so it's only natural he'll constantly attract the attention of countless women. It's not like I can do anything about it. It's his attitude that matters." Not afraid of death, the old middle school building was renovated into an elderly activity center after the school moved elsewhere. Nearby elderly would often spend time there. Many retired teachers were still living in the dorm building within the school grounds. As the three of them couldn't drive their cars inside, they reached the dorm building on foot. It was a decrepit building. On each of the 5 floors, there were a series of rooms resembling classrooms. Judging from the clothes hanging in front of the doors, it was evident not many teachers lived there anymore. Electra made a call before a middle-aged woman welcomed them inside. She was Jennifer Valentine, the daughter of the old principal, Nicholas Valentine. "Greetings. My father had just woken up, so feel free to talk with him." There were tear marks on her countenance. Clearly, she had been crying. Lucian and Roxanne followed Electra into the room before he asked, "What did the hospital say about Mr. Valentine's condition? He should have a medical record, right?" "Thank you for visiting my father, Mr. Farwell. However, my father... they say he has no hope for recovery." A sorrowful expression was set on Jennifer's countenance again. Lucian's and Electra's expressions turned grim when they saw how thin and feeble Nicholas, who was lying on a bed, had become. Even Roxanne couldn't help but sigh in her mind when she saw the old man's condition. What people are most often afraid of when they've grown old is that they'll be riddled with ailments, drain their family fortune, leaving none for their descendants, and pass away agonizingly in an unsightly manner. In the past, I bet his eyes were filled with light as he dedicated his life to education. Now, however, his eyes have turned cloudy. Lucian and Electra had to announce their presence loudly, fearing Nicholas wouldn't hear them. Eventually, Lucian introduced Roxanne to Nicholas. "This is my wife, Mr. Valentine. She's a doctor, and she's here today to examine you." Upon hearing that, Nicholas smiled rather emotionally. In response, Jennifer shed her sorrowful expression away and grabbed her father's hand excitedly. "Dad, let Dr. Jarvis examine you. Also, Ms. Lane and Mr. Farwell are willing to pay for your treatment. You don't need to worry about spending money anymore." "No. I don't need it. I'm fine. I've accepted my end. I have students all over the world. I'm not afraid of Earth. I'm not." Each intermittent word that left Nicholas' mouth was uttered firmly. Meanwhile, Jennifer presented her father's medical records to Roxanne. There wasn't enough light in the room, so Roxanne went outside to read it. Lucian asked Jennifer to follow his wife and explain the situation in detail. As Nicholas spoke long-windedly, he asked how Lucian and Electra had been doing. He also kept praising Lucian because the latter made numerous donations to the school in the past. In fact, Farwell Group was the one who financed the construction of the new campus. As Lucian patiently listened to Nicholas' words, he felt remorseful. "I've not been doing enough over the years. I can't believe I didn't visit you once." "It's fine if you're too busy to visit, considering how big your family is and how many businesses it has. However, know this. Your family has significantly contributed to our city's economy, so don't feel bad." Silently, Lucian nodded. Outside, after Roxanne finished listening to Jennifer's explanation of Nicholas' condition, she read through his medical records. "His condition does require a massive amount of money to be kept in check. I think I can try using the acupuncture technique I've been learning in conjunction with my own medicine." Lifetime. Initially, Jennifer didn't have much hope, but when she saw the solemn expression on Roxanne's face, she quickly served the latter a cup of coffee. Roxanne accepted the coffee, took a sip, and continued to read the record as she spoke. "The first thing we'll do is move your father to our hospital. You don't need to worry about the fee. It's all free. You just need to tend to his daily needs. The treatment will take around a month. Her words astonished Jennifer. Free treatment? She couldn't help but tremble emotionally because her father's treatment fee had nearly emptied her account, even though she still had a family to care for and her child was studying at a university. Do you mean it, Ms. Jarvis? Asked Jennifer, fearing that Roxanne was only joking. Nodding, Roxanne turned to her and explained, "He'll need an operation. I can't guarantee how much longer he'll live, but based on my experience, I can raise his 5-year survival rate to 85%. Jennifer was stunned before asking with elation, "Do you mean he can live 5 more years?" "You can say that." Instantly, Jennifer sobbed. "Truly? Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. You're my savior. My son knows his grandfather is sick, so he can't focus on his studies. Finally, I can tell him some good news." In response, Roxanne comforted her. Some time later, Lucian and Electra left the room. After seeing the crying Jennifer and listening to Roxanne's encouragement, Lucian realized what was happening. "Mr. Valentine is asleep. We didn't prepare much, but I heard you have a child studying at university and another in high school. Is that right?" When Electra learned Roxanne could treat Nicholas, she was happy for his family. Of course, she also felt envious of Roxanne's capabilities. Jennifer nodded. "I bet your family's fortune is nearly spent due to Mr. Valentine's ailment. In that case, I'll provide you with 1 million so your children can finish their education without worry." "If that's not enough, just let me know," offered Lucian. Electra added, "I don't have much cash on hand right now, only around 300,000 to 400,000, but I'll give them to you." They promised to give Jennifer money so she wouldn't need to worry about anything. That baffled Jennifer so much that she was at a loss for words for a long while. Out of nowhere, she wailed and attempted to kneel. However, Roxanne moved fast enough to prevent the middle-aged woman from doing so. Lucian also stepped forward to prevent that from happening. "Please don't be like that. Mr. Valentine dedicated his life to the education of the youth, so much so that he fell ill. It's our wish to repay his contribution and see him well. We'll also ask our fellow students to donate to your family." Yet, Mr. Valentine lived a simple life. He isn't a greedy man, so there's no way we'll let him be trapped by monetary issues, adjoined Electra. Their words successfully eliminated all of Jennifer's concerns. "I'll contact Madeline to send a vehicle here to pick Mr. Valentine up, Lucian." Roxanne's thoughts remained on Nicholas' condition. Without delay, she called Madeline, who swiftly sent an ambulance to her location. Unable to escape, Lucian offered, "Let's share a meal, Electra. If you hadn't paid attention to Mr. Valentine, I wouldn't have known he was in this state. If we didn't meet him in time, he might have been beyond saving." However, Electra declined. Hence, he left the school with Roxanne. On their way back, Roxanne received a call from Madeline notifying her that Nicholas was in the process of being transferred to the hospital. "You're doing a pretty good job as a hospital director," Roxanne teased. That spurred Madeline to grumble, "Can you stop hitting me when I'm down? I thought being a director just meant having meetings with everyone constantly." It turns out a director has a lot more responsibilities than I thought. My gosh, do you know what time I can only get off work now? Also, initially, I was looking forward to the mansion you gifted me. However, I'm so busy now that I don't even know if my water and electricity have been cut off or not. In response, Roxanne comforted her friend by mentioning the high salary and the opportunity to meet more outstanding doctors. To her surprise, Madeline asked, "What about Jonathan? What has he been doing lately? He seems busy. Do you think he's going to wear himself out? Should I arrange a checkup for him at the hospital?" Roxanne was stunned for a moment before understanding what was happening. Even though Jonathan's a blockhead, Madeline's still enamored with him. So, she agreed to help out. That sounds like a good plan. I'll ask Lucian to order him to attend a checkup at the hospital to experience your tenderness. After everything was wrapped up, the group bade Jennifer goodbye. As Jennifer watched them leave, she couldn't help but tear up again. Adeline sneered, "Sure. I'll be certain to let him have a taste of my tenderness. This time, it'll be my turn to prepare him a vomit bag." Upon hearing that, Roxanne felt a slight chill run down her spine. I wonder what punishment she'll inflict on Jonathan. When Lucian saw Roxanne giggling after ending the call, he asked her why she was laughing. Hence, she told him about Madeline's plan, eliciting a loud chuckle from him. It seems like there's no escape for Jonathan. Yet. Although, I think the Queen family may be in havoc right now. Who could have thought Frida would oppose her family? Roxanne's worry was accurate. Concurrently, in the Queen residence, Frida was packing her things. Her parents tried to convince her to stay and asked Jonathan to do the same. However, Jonathan scowled. "Don't mind her, Mom, Dad. She's out of her mind, considering she can't even tell she's being used by Sean. Just think about how much loss she caused our family this time. Does she really think Sean will hand those businesses to her?" Yeah, you're right. You're always right. The Queen family just has to rely on you. You're inhumane, do you know that? I can't believe you're even willing to steal your own sister's business. Frida barked furiously. While I raised the price to make more money, I also did it for the good of the Queen family. Yet he snatched those companies back from me for Lucian and Roxanne. Thank goodness Sean didn't blame me too much. Otherwise, I don't know how to face him. In any case, I'm definitely leaving the family since they won't help me, unlike Sean. He will win, and Jonathan will cry when that time comes. Jonathan will never achieve greatness by being Farwell Group's dog. Interesting encounter. Frida left the Queen residence without a second glance after packing up her belongings. Their parents thought of persuading Jonathan to forgive his sister, but Jonathan solemnly retorted, "I'm not the one who drove her away today." She knew she was guilty, and that was why she chose to leave. Also, please stop spoiling her. If not for Lucian's dismissal, our entire Queen family would have been ruined by her. Right as those words left his lips, a wave of frustration washed over him, and he stood up to leave. The car window was wound down as he drove, and he let the cold wind lash against his face. Jonathan felt the sudden urge for some alcohol, but there was no one suitable to have a drink with. Lucian would not reject his invitation, but he did not want to interrupt Lucian spending time with his family. Caden would be a good choice if not for his recently busy schedule. After a while of contemplation, Jonathan realized he did not have many friends. He had been too serious in recent years. Every decision he made in recent years was preceded by careful deliberation in order to develop the Queen family enough to catch up with Farwell Group. Sure enough, the Queen family was now powerful. He did not limit them to only the medicinal herbs business, he also ventured into other fields with Lucian. Lucian never once left him behind, as he would always give Jonathan a chance for investment. Those were things his younger sister did not understand. After stopping the car on a bridge, he got out of it to look at the surface of the river a distance away. As the cold breeze wrapped around him, he slowly calmed down. Jonathan was good at recomposing himself, after all. Right as he was about to turn around, he noticed a new car crashing into the back of his car. A loud bang ensued. Then, a woman's scream of terror came. Jonathan checked the back of his Mercedes and realized it had not suffered much damage. However, the woman seemed to have been frightened out of her mind as she continued screaming for a while. Jonathan quietly watched her from the side and waited until the woman got out of her car and walked over to him with an apologetic look. He noticed that she had a slender figure, and her face was lightly adorned with makeup. Based on her appearance, he assumed that she worked in an office. Once she walked over, she studied the collision point. Jonathan's car seemed to have come out of it mostly unscathed, but hers was not as lucky. The bumper was crushed. "I'm so sorry, mister. I really am. I've only started driving recently, and I just bought my car, so I'm not that experienced behind the wheel. I saw your car parked there, and I wanted to turn, but there were other cars at the side. I was panicking, so I..." When she lifted her head to take a glimpse of Jonathan's face, she froze. "He's so handsome. He has attractive features and a defined profile. Moreover, his slightly gloomy eyes are sure to catch any woman's attention." Suddenly, she was glad that she had crashed into someone's car, for it let her bump into a handsome man. Promptly, she introduced herself. "Mister, I'm Coralie Crawford. Let's make a police report and settle this properly. I'll definitely pay for the damage done." Jonathan swiftly waved his hands dismissively. "It's fine. We don't need to get the cops involved over a trivial accident like this. You're at fault for driving into my car, but I shouldn't have parked here either. Let's just bear the costs for the damages to our own cars." With that, he studied Coralie to make sure that she was fine. Then, he turned, about to leave. Coralie's heart skipped a beat. She did not want to let an interesting encounter like this slip by her. "Mister, what about this? To avoid any future misunderstandings, let's exchange numbers. I'm scared that you might go back on your word," Coralie said, her excuse a reasonable one. Jonathan knitted his brows. "Miss, I said that I shouldn't have parked there, but you were the one who crashed into my car. You're at fault, too, so there's no way we'll have any future misunderstandings. I have something to attend to, so please excuse me now." Not enough. A while later, Jonathan reached the Farwell residence. Jonathan had come in a hurry, thinking that something urgent had happened. However, Lucian was calmly drinking tea in the living room. He even invited Jonathan to join him. After a brief chat about the supply of medicinal herbs, Lucian started inquiring about Jonathan's health. "I'm in good health. Also, we're in the line of supplying medicinal herbs, so we're more attentive to our health." "What's on your mind, Lucian?" Jonathan curiously asked. It was obvious that Lucian's interest was piqued. "I'm not saying that there's anything issue with your health, but you've been slaving away for the family business. Don't you think you should do a proper checkup?" Jonathan nodded in agreement. "In that case, I'll do one." "Good. I've already made an appointment for you. You'll be doing the checkup in Roxanne's hospital, okay?" Lucian was worried that Jonathan might detect something amiss, but evidently, his worries were for naught. The dense Jonathan nodded again. "Is tomorrow fine? I'll head there in the morning." Lucian bobbed his head, but at the same time, he began wondering how Madeline was going to deal with the dense man. "By the way, Lucian, I've noticed some issues popping up with our overseas client. There is a rise in client complaints, and some are even trying to ask for lower prices. I'll be looking into this for more details." Jonathan was a workaholic, and he always talked about work. Lucian bobbed his head as the look in his eyes changed. "You don't need to do that." With that said, Jonathan got into his car and sped off. Coralie was still for a few seconds before curling her lips. "A mysterious man. You won't be able to get rid of me that easily, though. I've memorized your plate number. It's Sean. He's trying to take our clients away from us. Let's not alert him to our realization and let him dwell in his glee for now. We have more than enough clients to keep our business afloat. Since these people aren't interested in being the best in the market, let's replace them all. We'll wait until they break the contract first." Jonathan nodded, even more impressed by Lucian. He was still not as focused and sensitive to changes as Lucian. The latter had already identified the underlying issue when Jonathan just became aware of the problem. Lucian had even formulated a plan to address it. Maybe this is what a strategist is. The two continued chatting for a while longer. Jonathan still felt guilty about his sister's betrayal, but Lucian was unfazed. When Roxanne came down the stairs after tucking the children in, Jonathan rose to his feet and excused himself from the house. "How was it? Did he say yes?" she asked. An amused smile manifested on Lucian's lips. "He'll be going for the checkup tomorrow. I just think it'll be really interesting if the two of them end up being in a relationship." "Yes, I'd like to see that too. It'll be much better than mine. It won't be bittersweet." Roxanne sighed before shooting Lucian a glare. Lucian shuddered. He was all ready to start eating popcorn and watch the show unfold, but it seemed like he had accidentally shot himself in the foot instead. Thus, he quickly dropped the smile and replaced it with a solemn look. Pulling Roxanne closer to him, he then said, Of course, of course. You're right. I didn't do good by you, so what?" Just as Roxanne frowned, she saw Lucian going down on one knee. She froze. Then, Lucian fished out a black velvet box from his pocket and slowly opened it. His gaze on her was as if she was the only one who mattered to him. Roxanne was stunned, and her heart began to race. "Roxanne Jarvis, Ms. Jarvis, will you please marry me again?" I've failed you all these years. I was the reason you didn't experience a loving romance and the bliss of marriage. You were forced to grow up and become the mature individual I wasn't expecting you to be. For the children, you've gone through enough pain. For me, you've waited for so many years. I'm at fault for being so slow to realize these all. Maybe there'll be this wall in your heart forever. You might be wondering if I've chosen to be with you for the children's sake, but I'm going to tell you that's not the case. There are so many brilliant points about you that I'm attracted to. You're the most suitable partner I've ever met. I love you, Roxanne Jarvis. So, please marry me again. Lucian's heartfelt confession, solemn expression, and sincere gaze melted Roxanne's heart. She couldn't help but tremble at that moment. Tears flowed out of her eyes uncontrollably. She thought she would be returning to Lucian's side without an announcement of any sort. Even though there was a hole of regret in her heart, she told herself to ignore it and just enjoy the love Lucian was going to shower her with. She told herself that was enough. But the countless nights she spent lying on the man's arm, staring at his sleeping face, made her yearn for more, for a formal ceremony. She did not want to live through her days in a daze anymore. She now had what she had longed for right in front of her. Even though it was a little plain, and even though there was no one around to witness the scene, it was enough for her. With a smile on her face, she inclined her head and stretched out her arm, lifting her ring finger slightly. Lucian returned the smile. Roxanne could almost see a younger version of him with a new toy, beaming in the same way as he was at that moment. At the same time, she could also almost see the delight of a teenage version of Lucian after having solved a difficult mathematical question. For a split second, she could also imagine that smile on an adult Lucian's face as he managed a corporate empire. Lucian slid the ring into Roxanne's ring finger before placing a kiss on it. "Stand up quickly. Your reputation will be ruined if someone sees you like this." A sweet smile grew on Roxanne's lips as she looked at the ring on her finger. Lucian slowly rose to his feet before wrapping his arms around her. Simultaneously, he lowered his head to press a long kiss on her forehead. Right then, the lights in the living room went out. Thinking that it was a power outage, Roxanne scanned her surroundings before turning back to Lucian, about to ask him why the backup generator was not kicking in. However, in the next second, the ceiling of the living room turned into a sea of stars. Then, multiple figures appeared. "Congratulations, Roxanne! You've finally married Mr. Farwell." The first person to appear was Madeline, who passed a bouquet of fresh roses to Lucian. Lucian then handed the bouquet to Roxanne. Right after that, Madeline hugged her good friend tightly. Madeline's tears were rolling down her face, and she whispered to Roxanne, "I'm finally seeing you happy." The tears Roxanne had finally managed to stop flowed again. Then, popping sounds echoed in the room, and confetti flew everywhere. As it turned out, the children had not slept. They were all smiling at their parents as they ran over to them. "Daddy, Mommy's finally saying yes to you." "Mommy, are you happy?" "Mommy, we lied to you. We weren't sleeping yet. Daddy asked us to prepare this, so don't be mad at us." Scandalous scoundrels! How could Roxanne possibly be mad at them? She hunched over and cheerfully gave kisses to the children. Right then, Sonia and Elias walked over. The two of them were dressed rather formally. Elias was in a suit, and Sonia was in a gown. "Roxanne, this is what the Farwell family owes you. Lucian should be proposing to you, and we must do all the proper procedures. We're delighted that you're saying yes to Lucian." Elias was beaming. "We can't wrong a wonderful daughter-in-law like her anymore." There was a tinge of awkwardness in Sonia's expression, but she still walked over to Roxanne and cast an apologetic look. "Roxanne, I'm sorry for what happened in the past. I've made a terrible mistake. I hope you'll forgive me for those transgressions and give me a chance to compensate for them. I'm truly happy right now. It's my pleasure for you to marry Lucian." Roxanne was so caught up in the moment of bliss she could not find it in herself to be angry at Sonia. Meanwhile, Lucian nodded at his father's request. "There's no way we're skipping the wedding photos, wedding, and honeymoon." Madeline promptly intervened and chastised, "Of course. The Farwell family have plenty of money, so you have to give Roxanne the best, got it?" Lucian nodded obediently. The sudden proposal made Roxanne feel secure. His activities that night made Roxanne fall into a deep sleep afterward. In her dream, she was pregnant again. She could not see the appearance of the fourth baby clearly, but the childlike voice was saying, "Mommy, Mommy, hurry up. I want to play with my siblings." Unlike Roxanne, Frida was having a horrible night. After packing her luggage to head to Sean's mansion, she started waiting for Sean. However, no matter how long she waited for him, he never showed up. The falling out with her brother and the conflict with her parents was driving her to a mental breakdown. So, she ran to a bar and got herself drunk while waiting for Sean to call her. Alas, her phone never rang. Not even her parents bothered calling her. All she could think of was how ruthless her brother was. Stumbling out of the taxi, Frida belatedly realized she had nowhere to go. Hence, she could only hail a cab to return to Sean's mansion. Yet, before she could enter the house, she saw Sean's car driving over. But there was another person in the front passenger seat. Even though her vision was blurry from the alcohol, she could make out that the passenger was a young woman with an impressive figure. The last thread of sanity in her mind broke, and she fixed her gaze on the other woman. The weather was cold, and Sean took off his jacket to drape it on the other woman's shoulder the second they came out of the car. The smile on his face and the loving gaze in his eyes drove Frida mad. Frida could not stand it anymore. This was the man she had been waiting forever and a day for. She could forgive Sean for going after Aubrey. She could pretend that he did it to take revenge on Lucian. But now, Frida realized she was the dumbest woman in the world. She had willingly become his puppet, she had willingly sacrificed herself, and she had voluntarily cut ties with her family for his plan. Then, Frida hastily walked over to them. The alcoholic haze was gone, giving way to anger. Before Sean could register her presence, Frida slapped the other woman hard. In the next instance, she glared at Sean viciously and bellowed, "How could you do this to me, Sean? You ingrate!" Tears cascaded uncontrollably down her face, for the world was crumbling down around her. Raising her hand, she wanted to slap the man as well. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.